Hello, I'm Karis Garland and welcome to a special edition of The World Today on France 24. We'll be bringing you over 2 hours of live coverage as France marks Bastille Day. Here's a look at what's to come. France is holding its traditional military parade on the Champs-Élysées in Paris to mark its National Day this Monday. This year's edition seeks to underline the army's credibility and readiness to deploy amid unprecedented threats, while the guest of honor is Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto. We'll also be checking in with our reporters live on the ground, Pakal and Liza Kamov. Well, as France celebrates Bastille Day, this year's show of military might seeks to underline the army's credibility faced with new threats in a changing geopolitical context. The parade also shines a light on multilateral partnerships featuring troops from a French-Finnish contingent of the UNIFIL peacekeeping force in Lebanon, as well as forces from Belgium and Luxembourg. Meanwhile, the Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto is Emmanuel Macron's guest of honor, marking the 75th anniversary since the establishment of French-Indonesian relations. And that's as 450 Indonesian military personnel are also opening the parade, while youth involvement is also a big theme this year. The government underlining the necessary transmission of French values between past and present. Well, as well as our reporters on the ground at the parade, I'm joined on set by Major Julian, who's a major in the French Air Force and the head of the 30th Fighter Wing at Mont-de-Marsan Air Base. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
And Major Nicolas, who is also a commander in the French Air Force. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As well, on set with me is Philip Turle, our International Affairs Editor. Thank you very much, Philip.
Hello there, Karis.
First, though, we're going to get a taste of the atmosphere at the Champs-Élysées on the ground with our reporter Claire Pakal. Claire is standing by with us. Claire, what more can you tell us about what kinds of things we're going to be expecting today?
I'm standing towards the very bottom of the Champs-Élysées Avenue. We will see the troops coming past, but later in the morning. Actually, everything begins at the very top, at the Arc de Triomphe. That is where the French president will arrive very shortly, and he'll be greeted by his Chief of Defence Staff, Thierry Burkhard. He will also be greeted by the military governor of Paris, Loïc Mison, and they will drive down the Champs-Élysées Avenue and inspect the troops. It is only once the French president is seated in the stands that the parade can actually begin. It will start in the air. Aircraft will fly overhead, fighter aircraft, reconnaissance aircraft, transport aircraft. That will be a sight to be seen here in Paris. After that, the troops on the ground here on the avenue, they will begin marching towards the Concorde, of course, opened by the Indonesian troops. They are very much the guests of honor.
Thank you, Claire. I'll just cut you off there. We're having some trouble with the connection. We'll go instead to our other reporter, Liza Kamov, who's been talking to the public there on the Champs-Élysées as people gather to get a glimpse of the parade. Liza, what more can you tell us?
Hi, Karis. So I'm about a third of the way down the Champs-Élysées. I've been speaking to some very excited spectators. The parade is about to begin with, as Claire had said, Macron launching with a ceremony in tribute to the Committee of the Flame. And I'm here today with a couple. We have Diane and Adrien, who have travelled from Lyon to see this parade. Now, Diane, I was just saying it is the 100th anniversary of the Committee of the Flame. The ceremony is being kicked off with a special tribute to this. Could you just tell me why you think this is important and what message does it give to the French public?
I think that it's important because it's important to honor the victims. It's important to not forget the victims that participate in the war for France. And it's also beautiful that they pay tribute like they are going to do at the beginning and at the end. And I think that all of the parade, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful tribute to all of the victims.
Fantastic, thank you, Diane. And so, Adrien, you are French, and earlier you were telling me that you have a family member who works in the defence sector of France. So today must be quite a special day for you. Today we have a lot of youth participating in the parade, notably youth from the voluntary military service programs. This is the first time they are marching in the military parade. Why do you think it is important for youth to be participating? What message does it send to French citizens like you?
Yeah, I think it's really important for young people to bring them today for the first time, and for the sense of unity, resilience, for the honor and for the country. So yes, it's a really beautiful day and an important day to bring them today, and to give more wants to bring more young people, yes, in the military part.
Yes, you're right, especially as the commitment of the youth to France's cohesion and resilience is one of the themes presented in this year's military ceremony and parade. So as we wait for everything to kick off, we'll be here for the next couple of hours following from the spectators' point of view.
All right, Liza Kamov, thank you very much, reporting live there from the Champs-Élysées. Let's take a step back now and talk about the origins of Bastille Day, the 14th of July. Philip Turl, can you remind us of the origins, the history behind this day and its importance?
Well, it's all to do with the storming of the Bastille prison, which doesn't exist anymore. There are very few remnants of it. You can go down into the metro at Place de la Bastille in Paris and still see a tiny bit that was underground. But it was the storming of the Bastille in 1789 on the 14th of July, which is the reason for this military parade today. That sort of marked the beginning of the end of the French monarchy and the establishment of a republic, of the French Republic. And the ceremony to mark this has really been a regular event in France, not since 1789, but more surprisingly, only since 1880, when it became a ceremony that took place on an annual basis. It hasn't always been in the Champs-Élysées. There have been numerous other areas of Paris where this ceremony has taken place. In Longchamp, which is a hippodrome in the west of Paris. It's also taken place in Vincennes in the east of Paris. It's taken place next to the Invalides, which is a former military hospital across the bridge to Place de la Concorde. It's only really since the election of François Mitterrand in 1981 that every year the military parade has taken place down the Champs-Élysées to Place de la Concorde, which is a much more majestic way of proposing and showing off the French armed forces. And only 2 times since then has it not taken place in the Champs-Élysées, the most recent one being in 2020 during the COVID outbreak, when the parade was cancelled, and last year the parade took place in Avenue Foch, which is the other side of the Arc de Triomphe, due to all the preparations taking place for France to host the Olympic Games.
Yes, Philip, we are awaiting the arrival of the French President, Emmanuel Macron. We can see live pictures there on the screens. Major Julian, the military parade is a long-standing tradition, as Philip said. It's kind of balancing national pride, but also historical memory. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a chance for us, the airmen, sailors and soldiers, to meet with all the French people alongside the Champs-Élysées. We are really proud to show all the military to our brothers in France.
And Major Nicolas, it's also a chance to perhaps at least interact in some form with the French public. It's not really something that members of the French Air Force or Army have the chance to do very often, is it?
That's right. With the end of the conscription, the ties between the population and the nation and the armed forces have a little bit been less tight, and the annual military parade is an occasion to show the communion between the nation and their armed forces, and that's something we see every year, because there are always lots of people cheering and yelling on the sides of the parade. So that's a very pleasant day for the armed forces.
And Philip, has to be said, not particularly common, at least in Western democracies, to have this kind of military parade, is it?
France is almost the only country in Western Europe that does this kind of military parade. Of course, you see military parades in other nations, but this is really a typically French tradition. You don't have this, for example, in Germany, obviously, because of the two world wars. You don't have it in the United Kingdom either. There is a ceremony called Trooping the Colour on the King's birthday, but it's not at all the same kind of ceremony, the same kind of military parade that we see every year, every 14th of July here in France. It's not only just a military parade. This is a day of celebration in France, a day of celebration for the French Republic, where people come together. There are firework parties. There are people who get together to see each other, to organise parties together, also to celebrate the 14th of July. So it really is a coming together of the country, of the people of France, to celebrate what they see as the success of the French Republic. But also, I think its aim is to show the mobilization that the country has thanks to the army, thanks to the armed forces. They are really key to all of this, that parade that's going to take place down the Champs-Élysées. It's not to show that France wants to declare war on anybody. It's to pay tribute to all the men and women who are ready to protect France, ready to, in some cases, even give their lives to protect France. It is their day to be shown in public, to walk down the Champs-Élysées. It's a great honour for many of them to do that, to be reviewed by the French president and the government and the prime minister and a visiting dignitary this year from Indonesia. So all of these elements come together on this day, Bastille Day, which is a national public holiday, and many French people sitting in front of their television sets right now waiting for that military spectacle to start.
Yes, Philip, we can see the President, Emmanuel Macron, arriving there at Place Charles de Gaulle. He's being welcomed by the Army General Chiefs of Staff, Thierry Burcan, and the Chef d'État-Major of the Army, Loïc, and accompanied by the General of the Army, Loïc Mison, as well there. This ceremony is going to be kicking off with a special tribute, because this is the 100 years of the Committee of the Flame, that eternal flame that burns underneath the Arc de Triomphe. This committee is actually in charge of rekindling the flame every night at 6:30 p.m. Julian and Nicolas, can you tell us a little bit about what we're seeing in these pictures here?
Yes, the President of the Republic will just revive the flame, the eternal flame of the unknown soldier. So, as you said, it's done every day by the Committee of the Flame at 6:30 every night. And today, as every year, it's the President that's doing that. And as it's the 100th anniversary, the president will use a new sword that he offered to the committee today.
And Major Julian, why is this committee and the flame, what is the significance behind it?
Well, this is a symbol of remembrance for all the fallen, the families of the wounded and killed soldiers, and also all the victims of terrorism. So it's really important for all the French to remember all their fallen and wounded people all along the year, every day at 6:30.
Right, the flame was first lit in 1923, I believe, by the then French Minister for War. The committee obviously came later in 1925, but you know, this obviously came after World War I, when so many died and were injured for France. 1.4 million dead and 3.6 million hurt. That's right?
Exactly, and the former president said, we will never want, I mean, we don't want to see that anymore in the following years.
Yes, and we just saw that the president replaced the sword with a new one, and that's this new sword that will be used to revive the flame.
And what does the rekindling of the flame involve? How do you use the sword?
Oh, the sword is used just to push the tap of gas in order to revive the flame. Tell me if you want to break in. Yep. Well, if you're just joining us, we are watching as President Emmanuel Macron goes to the Place Charles de Gaulle, the Arc de Triomphe, here in the French capital as part of Bastille Day events. He's just witnessed the rekindling of the flame under the Arc de Triomphe as the Committee of the Flame celebrates its 100 years of existence. Well, we're going to have a military parade very shortly. 7,000 people are involved in this parade, including some 5,000 ground troops. With me on set is Majors Julian and Major Nicolas from the French Air Force. Tell me a little bit about the people involved in this year's parade, and is this a much bigger number than we usually see in years past?
Yes, it's just a bit bigger than the previous parades, and they are coming from all different corps of the Army, Air and Space Force, Navy, also what we call the DGA, which are the engineers of the armed forces, the health services, and they are all very proud to be there to represent all the corps of the armed forces.
All right, well, we're just going to cross live to our reporter, Claire Pakal, who is at the Champs-Élysées. She's going to tell us a little bit more about what else we're going to expect in this parade. Claire, tell us more.
So I'm standing towards the bottom of the Champs-Élysées Avenue. Just behind me, you might be able to make out we have some Legionnaires troops who are standing to attention. They're, of course, preparing to march. But it's the aircraft which are coming first. The aircraft will be flying over our heads before the troops begin to march. After the troops have all marched down to Concorde, they will then be followed by the helicopters, so back into the skies. And after that, we will see the vehicles, the tanks, the armoured vehicles driving down the Champs-Élysées Avenue. And finally, the mounted troops, the horses, 200 horses will make their way down the Champs-Élysées to Concorde. And all of this will be capped off with a finale, the 100th-year anniversary of the Bleuet de France, so the blue cornflower, which is a symbol of remembrance, rather like the poppy, equivalent to the poppy. It's 100 years since the Bleuet de France came into being, and even today, the Bleuet de France continues as an organisation to give psychological, financial and material support to wounded French soldiers and their families. So at the end of the ceremony, the Bleuet de France will be honoured.
Claire, thank you very much for that update. Philip, we can see Macron there in what I think is called the command car. Tell us about that.
Yes, that's correct. Some facts and figures for any petrol heads listening in. This is called a VLRA, which in French means a Véhicule Léger de Reconnaissance et d'Appui, which basically in English means it's a light vehicle for recognition and backup. Built by a company called ACMAT, the Atelier de Construction Mécanique de l'Atlantique, which is basically the Atlantic-based mechanical construction workshops. It's a French-built car, in other words, specially designed for what we're seeing today. That's taking the president down the Champs-Élysées. And this type of vehicle has been used on a regular basis since the time of Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, who was president of France from 1974 to 1981. And each car is specially designed for this day. Now, you'll notice if you look at it carefully, Emmanuel Macron is standing at the back. There is a handrail which is specially put in there that the president can hold on to so that he doesn't wobble about too much while he's reviewing the troops, and also salute the passers-by as he's driven down the Champs-Élysées. This vehicle is powered by a 6-cylinder diesel engine, and if it's taken out onto the open road, it can travel up to about 100 kilometers an hour at full speed. But it's been a success for France. There have been quite a few of them built and exported. 12,000 examples have been exported to about 50 different countries. So this is another way on a day like today, the 14th of July, for showing not only the French, not only those who are in the Champs-Élysées, the whole world who are watching this ceremony, what France does best. Not only Paris, not only the beautiful Avenue des Champs-Élysées, not only the military personnel who are there parading in their uniforms, but also the fact that France can build military vehicles and can also construct military capacity for France as well. All of this part of what France is showing off on this military day. This is a vehicle that, as I said, has been used now for almost the past 50 years on a regular basis by all the different presidents since Valéry Giscard d'Estaing. No president has, until now, decided to change that vehicle for something different, which shows also, I think, the fact that it is reliable and is something that people turn out actually because they want to see the vehicle the President of the French Republic is travelling in down the Champs-Élysées.
It is true. It is become almost a symbol of this 14th of July parade. We always see the president travel in this command car. As I mentioned earlier, there are 7,000 participants in this military parade, both men and women. Women still, though, make up a small percentage of the overall French military. Is that something that the French military is seeking to change?
Oh, well, not especially. I think it's just going nature. naturally, there are more and more women in the armed forces. That's a natural phenomenon. So there's no need to push for that. It's going its way.
And as we were mentioning, this year there's quite a big emphasis on youth involvement, especially in volunteer kind of services. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, exactly. We will see on the first part of the parade what we call the service militaire volontaire, the civilian volunteer service. The youth represents the future of the armed forces. So we are here to explain what we do every day in our job, and the youth, they will take our place in a few years. So that's the point of having the young people in front of the parade today.
And as part of that volunteer service, I read that these young people then go on to help be placed in either jobs or social positions. How does it work, the recruitment process?
For the service volontaire, it gives a chance to young people who didn't have the chance to have a diploma, to make studies. They give them a chance to get a job, to be taught to how to work. And some of them will join the armed forces, others will just have a civilian jobs, but this is just a chance for them to start their lives as an adult.
All right, and Philip, this, it has to be said, all comes after Emmanuel Macron made an announcement on Sunday evening. He said that the French defense budget should be drastically increased. Can you just recap a little bit about what he said and his justification for this?
The problem that France is facing right now is that Emmanuel Macron has been pretty clear that the French, and not only the French, but Western Europe in particular, is facing an existential threat from Russia. And that basically France's army is not ready to take on that threat, although there have been changes over the past years since Emmanuel Macron has been president of France. What he's saying is that Europe needs to stand on its own 2 feet. Basically, Europe can't depend always on the United States, because the United States might pull out of NATO, might pull its support for the European Union and its defences. And we are face to face today here in France with a threat from Russia. There is war on our doorstep in Ukraine, and there's no reassurance that that situation is going to be solved anytime soon and could not get worse in the future. So what Emmanuel Macron is basically saying is, yes, we need to increase the military budget. In 2017, the total military budget was about 32 billion euros annually. He said that by 2030, it was supposed to be up to 64 billion euros annually. But because of the dangerous situation that France sees itself in right now, that military budget needs to be up to 64 billion or just over by 2027. That's 3 years ahead of the original schedule, which means that France is going to have to look for 3 billion euros per year in the next couple of years to be able to reach that target, which is quite a mean feat if one bears in mind that the French national debt is 3.3 trillion euros. And that means over 60 billion euros a year is reimbursed just to pay the interest on that. So the government coffers are empty, but Emmanuel Macron says that France needs to increase its military spending. What he's looking at is bringing in, as we've just been hearing, more young people. That is something he's going to make an announcement about between now and the autumn. He's also waiting for the Prime Minister, François Bayrou, to come up with a plan for the next annual budget, which should be announced tomorrow, to see how the increase in military spending can be taken on board without extending the national debt. That is the big problem, the big puzzle facing the government right now. But what the president would like to do is to move away from a situation where France has about 15,000 military personnel who are already mobilized to intervene in conflicts around the world, but only small-time conflicts to go and get the job done and come back, but they will not need backup by plane, not need vast amounts of missiles and ammunition. What Emmanuel Macron is saying is that we need to increase that number of soldiers who are ready militarily to intervene. So we have about 200,000 people currently in the French armed forces. What we need to do is to double that to about 400,000 over the next few years so that France will be militarily ready to take on this threat. And there was a statement that Emmanuel Macron said last night, which about sums up what he was saying, which was, to be free, you have to be feared, and to be feared, you have to be powerful. And that's why he's saying, we need to be ready. This is a wake-up call. I think France needs to know that democracy is under threat, personal freedom is under threat. If we don't do anything, that threat is going to increase. The only way we can abate that from getting any worse is if France is militarily capable to fight off or make anybody who's thinking about firing a missile or creating a situation of military intervention to think twice before doing that.
And this, of course, comes after there was a NATO meeting last month. Members agreed to increase defence spending to 5% of GDP. France only just last year reached the alliance's previous guideline of 2% of GDP. So do you think all of this is realistic?
The French government wants to increase that to 5%. I mean, this has been something that Donald Trump, the US president, has been banging on about since he got into the White House, even before that, saying that NATO is not spending enough money. The United States is footing the bill. It doesn't want to have to do that anymore, and everyone's going to have to reach into their pocket to pay up and make sure their military is up to 5% of GDP. France is 2.06% so far, so it still has quite a long way to go. Compared to Germany is 2.12, and the UK is 2.33. So none of those countries is up to the 5% mark. There are pledges left, right, and centre that is going to increase over the next few years. The problem is, Karis, that one can increase military spending, but if there isn't the military hardware and the military equipment to back up the army afterwards, then that doesn't really serve any purpose. There's also a lack of manpower, so there can be an increase in military spending, but without the increase in production and the increase in manpower, it's not going to make the army any more performing. So that is what the government is trying to reach for right now, is to say, OK, we're going to increase military spending. It's a long-term project up until 2027, 2030, but we have to increase the number of personnel taking part in the army to bring them in, and also to improve the capacity of our country to respond to any military threat.
And so one theme, as we were saying, of this parade this year at least, is to show a kind of credibility of France's military and air force, and you know, France wants to have at least one brigade that is ready to be deployed in a short amount of time. Major Nicolas, I believe that's something that we're going to be seeing later in this parade.
Yes, we're going to see the 7th Armored Brigade, which is the Good for War Brigade. It means that it's ready to be deployed within 10 days with all of its manpower, equipment, logistics, and supply. So that's a permanent regimen in the armed forces to have units which are ready to be deployed. And currently, it is the 7th Brigade for the army. And this brigade is parading today. So that's one of the main elements of the parade.
And Major Julian, you said earlier that something off air that, you know, for the Air Force, it's different. There are fewer people involved, and I believe that, you know, there's always people that are ready to be deployed if needed.
Yeah, especially over the French territory, 24 hours a day, every second. We have one fighter which is able to take off within a few minutes. We have choppers. We have special forces that are able to be deployed within a few days. So, and every single day we have at least one submarine which is somewhere in the seas. So all of the different corps are ready to go within a certain amount of time.
Philip, I want to just go back to an image that we saw a little earlier on the screen. We got a glimpse of the Indonesian president, Prabowo Subianto, he is the guest of honor this year. His presence then demonstrating a deepening strategic partnership between France and Indonesia.
Yeah, President Prabowo Subianto is the guest of honor. He'll be standing in the podium there with Emmanuel Macron at Place de la Concorde. 500 Indonesian military and police personnel, including a full band, are set to march down the Champs-Élysées. We were just looking at the images there as Emmanuel Macron was being driven past. That was the Patriot 2 task force, which is set to march at the front of the Bastille Day military parade, controlled by their commander, who is called General Ferry Irawan. He said that during the joint military police troop deployment, they will demonstrate discipline, precise movements in formation, and the opportunity to lead this historic parade reflects the strong and enduring bilateral ties between Indonesia and France. And just one other element which I think a lot of people are wondering about, and that is how safe is it for the French President Emmanuel Macron to be driven down the Champs-Élysées in an open vehicle and not face someone shooting a gun at him? This is extremely well policed, this event. There are, if I get the figure right, I think around 11,500 police officers surveying this. It's not impossible. There was a time when Jacques Chirac was president of the Republic and some shots were fired, which he didn't hear, and the man firing them was arrested. He was part of the public. But the people standing there watching have been checked, and all of the other people around in the whole area, there are snipers on rooftops and things like that. So the president is put in the safest position as possible. Here he is greeting the Prime Minister, François Bayrou.
That's it. French President Emmanuel Macron arriving at Place de la Concorde, greeting the Prime Minister and also the Defense Minister there. Majors Julian and Nicolas, what else from this moment are we expecting from this parade? Macron will take his seat and the parade will begin with an air demonstration.
Yes, sure. The Air Force starts the parade with the aircraft first. Then there will be the troops marching along the Champs-Élysées, and it will be closed by the helicopters.
102 planes and helicopters are taking part, correct?
Approximately, yes. About 60 planes and the same number of helicopters, a little bit less.
So the aircraft that normally take place in the Patrouille de France, which is when we see the blue, white and red smoke coming out of the planes, this year there will be one less aircraft than usual?
Yes, exactly. Normally the Patrouille de France will open the parade with 9 jets. This year there will only be 8 jets. They had an accident a few months earlier, so that's why there are only 8 pilots today.
And in terms of some of the equipment that we're going to be seeing on the Champs-Élysées this Monday, most of it, I mean, we're seeing recent technologies, nothing particularly new, but we do know that the French military is making a point of integrating new technologies into how it works. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, exactly. As a fighter pilot, I'm flying the Rafale, and today we are flying on the Rafale what we call the standard F4, and within the coming years we'll upgrade to the F5 using an unmanned aerial system, which will, for example, fly with us on the battlefield. So that's what you will see on the parade. The current system that we are using, and the next generation that will join the armed forces.
And are we also going to be seeing any examples of French equipment, for example, like Caesar howitzers, which were sent to Ukraine?
Yeah, that's the same system. We have lots of very exquisite equipment in the French armed forces. We have a full spectrum capacity. Not big numbers like other bigger countries, but we have all of the capacities in every field, like in the air, in the navy, and in the land forces. So as said Philippe earlier, there has been a big effort in the budget, and we have to do the best with it. And it's a balance between the numbers and the quality of the equipment. And so we try and do the best with what we have.
All right, we're going to take a listen to the French military band playing the Marseillaise. There we are, the Marseillaise there being played by the military band. Emmanuel Macron has actually just come back from a state visit to the United Kingdom. That was a 3-day visit there. Macron talked about Europe's nuclear capacity and the joint nuclear agreement that he signed with the United Kingdom. How is all of this going to work?
Well, this goes back to that sentence that I was telling you about earlier on, which basically is Emmanuel Macron saying that to be safe, one has to be feared, and the only way to be feared is to be powerful. And this is an agreement which is called the Northwood Agreement, which has been signed between Emmanuel Macron for France and Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, which aims to bring together the two countries' nuclear deterrent. Why is that important? Because France and the UK are the only two European countries that have a nuclear weapon. France, of course, is part of the European Union. It has an independent nuclear deterrent. Britain is no longer part of the European Union, but it has a nuclear deterrent that is part of NATO, under NATO control, basically in the charge of the United States. What the two leaders have said is that if they pull together the nuclear deterrent, that will act as a way of maybe making some people think twice about trying to launch an attack.
Les honneurs militaires ont été rendus par un détachement composé de la musique de la garde républicaine, du drapeau et une compagnie du 1er régiment d'infanterie de la garde républicaine et d'une compagnie du 2e régiment d'infanterie de la garde républicaine. L'ensemble étant placé sous le commandement du colonel Richard Elliot, commandant le 1er régiment d'infanterie de la garde républicaine.
Merci mon colonel. Bon 14.
Merci Monsieur le Président.
President Emmanuel Macron joining his wife Brigitte Macron and greeting the Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto, the guest of honor for this Bastille Day. Macron having visited him in Jakarta at the end of May as well there. Well, let's check in on our reporter on the ground at the Champs-Élysées. As we've been saying, multilateralism, multilateral partnerships are being highlighted in this parade with troops from the peacekeeping force UNIFIL in Lebanon. We've got troops from Belgium and Luxembourg, and the team of the Auvergne frigate, which has been deployed to the Baltic Sea. And we can see there the Patrouille de France in the skies above Paris. So we're beginning to see here the start of the air parade with the Patrouille de France there. Major Julian, what's involved? How much training do you have to go through to do this kind of display?
For this display, you have to know that it's a real operation. We have jets flying over over the president every 20 seconds. So we have to be prepared to be on the target at a precise second. So we do a real training. We have like 4 or 5 rehearsals during the preceding month. And what you can see on the screen is the air-to-air retreating aircraft, the C-135. It's his last flight in the French Air Force. This aircraft has been flying in the Air Force for about 50 years.
And what are some of the other aircraft that take part in this? I mean, the whole thing lasts 9 minutes in total.
Yeah, exactly. We have fighter jets coming from obviously the French Air and Space Force, but on the first patrol, we had some friends coming from Switzerland, from Spain, from Germany, and from the UK. We had the Typhoon, the Eurofighter Typhoon, flying alongside the French fighters.
Okay, so is it usual also to train with international partners and things like that? How much cooperation is involved?
In our daily life, we are working abroad with all the NATO allies, but not only with Indonesian people. So that's why we really want to fly over Paris with our friends and allies, because when we are performing mission abroad, we are performing it within a team of many countries.
All right, we can see the President, Emmanuel Macron, with his wife there sitting on the podium, of course, just next to the Indonesian President as well. Indonesia also buying some of those Rafale jets from France. Philip, we're expecting Indonesia to want to buy an additional set of those jets as well, I think.
I think that, once again, this is a formidable showground for what France does best. Frigate jets, army material, planes. If you want any idea about whether to buy French, come and watch a 14th of July Bastille Day parade in the air and on the ground, and you will see that you will not make a mistake, I think, in the eyes of the French, if you buy goods that are manufactured in France. And it's important to say that this is one of the things that Emmanuel Macron has been quite keen to emphasize over the past few months, that France really should not any longer depend on the United States, no longer be obliged to buy US-produced weaponry, and that everything can be produced in Europe, and that is something that Europe, and in particular France, should be looking to do as quickly as possible as the threat to democracy and freedom is growing.
I'm going to turn to our Air Force experts and ask, what about the weather conditions? I mean, today it's clear, but how can wind affect turbulence, or do you anticipate anything like this?
We try to anticipate everything on the ground, but obviously when we are airborne, we have to do with live conditions. And it's a bit cloudy, but the clouds are high enough to fly over Paris safely. And it looks like a bit windy. We see all the jets fighting to be in a good position. And what we see on the screen is an Atlantic 2 from the Navy, which is a recce aircraft. And on this screen, we see 4 A400, which is the brand new Airbus transport aircraft. And I think that we have 3 French, and the last one is a Spanish one flying with the French Air and Space Force.
Okay, Major Julian, thank you very much for that description. We're going to cross live to our reporter, Claire Pakal, who's standing by at the parade there. Claire, you're going to talk to us a little bit about those 450 Indonesian military personnel who are going to be opening the ground troops parade.
Indonesian troops are opening the parade, and here they are behind me. That is the military drum band, the Indonesian military drum band. You can see their impressive percussion skills, their headwear as well. Let's take a listen. Drum band, we have soldiers from the Indonesian Army, Navy and Air Force. I was speaking a little earlier on to a battalion commander from the Indonesian army. He said he was extremely proud to be here today, marching with his troops down the Champs-Élysées. They've been practicing hard, they've been working hard, and as you can see, they are lockstep, perfectly in time, marching down the Champs-Élysées as the crowds watch. Troops from the Indonesian army.
All right, thank you very much for that, Claire. So much going on. We are breaking up a little bit with you with that connection there, but we'll check in again shortly. There is a criticism, Philip, over choosing Indonesia as a guest of honour, concerns over Prabowo, who himself is a former general, being involved in alleged human rights abuses.
It's always difficult for the French to draw the line when it comes to who to invite and who not to invite as a guest of honour to the tribune in the Champs-Élysées. I remember a few years ago Donald Trump was invited, many people saying that because of the fact that he was a contentious person in the United States and also not particularly pro-European, that he shouldn't be invited, just as there are at the moment signatures and petitions in the United Kingdom against his state visit coming up in September. You can never please everybody all the time, but I think the French authorities see that by inviting President Prabowo Subianto from Indonesia to take part in this military parade today, it is a gauge of friendship and for the future, and also thanks to Indonesia for its support. And that is why the French authorities are doing that. And also I think with a view that this may lead to more military contracts in the future for France to sell military hardware to Indonesia as well. So it's all part of a long-term planning. It's not something that's just done on the spur of the moment. The invitation isn't just sent out a week before the Bastille parade takes place. This has been being planned for months, if not years at sometimes, as to who is going to come on what date and for how long. So I think there will always be those who are against the idea of a head of state coming for some reason or another, but I think that the French feel that this was the just thing to do, to invite the Indonesian president to take part in this year's Bastille Day parade.
And as Claire said, the troops are clearly very, very pleased, very proud to represent their country as part of this parade, as are the French troops themselves, no doubt. How far in advance are members of the French army, the ground army and the Air Force, how far in advance are they training for this? Are they notified that they're going to take part?
Well, since the very end of the parade, there is a core team that is already working on the next year parade. But about the troops who are parading, there's designated a few months before, and the real training starts about 2 weeks before.
All right, so clearly a very well-oiled machine, as you would expect for anything related to the French Air Force or French military. And again, we were focusing on the French youth and their involvement in this. Notably, the government said that the necessary transmission of values from past to present for the younger generations, that was really important. What exactly are the values that we're talking about here, and why is it significant?
All the values that we have in the armed forces are, the first one, I would say, brotherhood, so between the civilian and the armed forces. So we will want to show today that we are part of the nation and we are here to protect our citizens all over the world. So that's what we want to show today with the youth. They are yet civilian. They might join the armed forces, but they are not. It's not mandatory for them to join the armed forces. So I think that the brotherhood is something really important for us.
And we can see there on the screen the French flag being waved alongside the Indonesian flag as the parade is opened by those Indonesian troops, with the military band playing traditional music that our reporter Claire was talking about earlier. Let's just take a listen into that. And we can see the troops that are arriving at Place de la Concorde. Philip, tell us about this part of the French capital and why it's significant.
Well, first of all, I've taken part many times in the Bastille Day parade as a journalist at Place de la Concorde in the Champs-Élysées, perched on a monument with a microphone trying to get sound. It's always a very emotional and exciting experience. Watching it on television is good, but being there is even better. And watching this parade going down here, these Indonesian troops, just shows about the hard work, the precision, the costumes, all is absolutely impeccable, not a step out of line. All the rehearsals, the months of training that people have to go through just this very short period, walking down the Champs-Élysées, which is just about a kilometre and a bit in length. But no mess up, no problems with anything, and everyone, I think, happy to be there, as much as President Emmanuel Macron, who appears to be enjoying himself immensely with lots of smiles and laughing going on in the tribune next to his wife. So as far as Place de la Concorde is concerned, it's significant in the fact that it used to be called Place de la Révolution in connection with the French Revolution. Some of the buildings at Place de la Concorde, the Hôtel de la Marine, the Hôtel de Crillon, which are there now, actually date from before the Revolution, about 1760. And they were there when Place de la Concorde used to be the place where people were guillotined. There was a guillotine set up there just outside the Hôtel de Crillon, and that's where Louis XVI, the French king, was guillotined. That's where Marie Antoinette was also guillotined, and several other notary personalities from the French Revolution. So it's quite fitting in a way that this parade goes down to Place de la Concorde, which remains today one of the most beautiful squares in Paris, and so much so that the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, has decided to try to kick traffic out of Place de la Concorde because it's being used, or been used for decades, as a giant roundabout by people going from one side of the River Seine to the other. She's made it just a single lane for each vehicle on only one side of the square, and where these troops are marching right now is going to be a green area very soon with grass to stop traffic from driving past the bottom of the Champs-Élysées. So all of this is part of this Parisian desire to make Paris greener and more eco-friendly. So in a way, when you look at Place de la Concorde today, in a few years' time, well, the areas just around the tribune there will soon be covered in grass and be grassy areas for people to sit in and enjoy the view of the Champs-Élysées.
All right, we can see there the parade continuing. Major Julian or Major Nicolas, could you tell us a bit about who these people are parading and their roles?
Yeah, we're just seeing the Finnish-French detachment from the United Nations Interposition Forces in Lebanon, where the French and Finnish army are working side by side to accomplish the mandate of the United Nations. And this is something, I mean, it's not the only, of course, UN force that French troops are a part of. That's the main one, and that's the oldest one. The oldest? Because this mission has been going on since 1978. So that's the oldest mission of the French armed forces nowadays. And Philip, there are people taking part in this parade for the first time as well, aren't there?
This is part of the French drive to bring in young people, part of the Service National Universal, or the National Universal Service, which is open to 15 to 17-year-olds. And the French sent out requests telling certain young people they had been selected to take part in the Bastille Day celebrations. So as a result of that, and trying to enthuse more young people to sign up to this voluntary national service. For the moment, it's not generalized, but that is something that may become in the next few months. Some of them are taking part today, and one of them, who was being interviewed on French domestic radio this morning, who I was listening to, was saying, I got the request thinking maybe I was going to be asked to walk down the main street in the village I live in France, or take part in a little gathering with the mayor of the village. I never dreamed that I would be walking down the Champs-Élysées in front of President Emmanuel Macron. What an enormous honor for me to be able to do that. So this is certainly going to make some young people's day-to-day being able to take part in this military parade for the first time.
Indeed. And the 14th of July is also an occasion for France to present awards to certain citizens, notably Gisèle Pellicot, not at the parade itself, but Gisèle Pellicot, who we've been talking a lot about on France 24, the woman who waived her right to anonymity during a mass rape trial. She's being awarded an award today, this Bastille Day as well. So there we are. What else? What other troops are we seeing on the screen at the moment?
These are currently the young people Philippe was talking about. Just before we saw the Navy counter mining flotilla and the space base of the Air Force, the new space base, and now are coming the young people from the voluntary military services and also the adapted military services from overseas territories of the French Republic.
Right.
They are marching side by side in two platoons.
And for that voluntary service, there are centers across France for that?
Yes, the adapted military services exists only in overseas departments and territories, and the voluntary military service is a more recent disposition that exists since 2015, and it's in 7 places on the French territory, and it helps young people that have difficulties to integrate the workforce.
Okay.
And what we see on the screen is going to be the beginning of the traditional part, I would say. We see just behind the car the Polytechnic School, which is one of the most famous engineering schools in the world, and they are traditionally starting the parade for all the officers' school of the armed forces.
And this is a school where people are trained in all sorts of domains, or is it really specialized?
No, they can train in I would say scientific parts such as math, physics, but some of them will specify their studies in languages. I mean, they will be employed in lots of different fields on the work world, and some of them will join the armed forces. There are around 400 students every year in the school coming from. Most of them are coming from France, but they have a percentage of them coming from all over the world.
All right. We're also going to be seeing a little later troops on horses, troops in vehicles. Are any of these new aspects to the parade? Are these very traditional that we see every year? Is there anything of note in that respect?
No, the parade this year is going to be quite traditional, with first the academies, then different troops from the 3 services, and then the vehicles, and at the end the helicopters. So it's quite as usual.
All right.
All of the military officers' academies, and we just saw the gendarmerie, and here is the Navy.
The gendarmerie, which yes, we see very often in France. Can you tell us a little bit more about their day-to-day role?
Oh, gendarmerie is part of the internal security forces, so they have a military status and military training, but they're working for the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So it's military police force.
And we're also going to see, units, soldiers from Belgium, from Luxembourg, with whom French troops work closely. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, so there is currently large cooperation between the three countries about the land forces equipment. So all of the three armies we will be using the same vehicles, and so that's the point of this their presence today.
All right, well, we can certainly see that there are many people lining the Champs-Élysées there, watching the parade. Let's check in on the atmosphere with our reporter on the ground, Liza Kamov. Liza, give us a sense of what it's like where you are.
Hi, Karis. I'm about halfway down the Champs-Élysées, and I can tell it's incredibly exciting. Everyone's clapping at each regiment marching down the Champs. You can hear them. Everyone's cheering. Early on, we had the aerial parade fly above us. It was truly impressive. And I'm now here standing with Dylan. He is a Taiwanese student studying in Paris. Hi, Dylan. Can you tell me, this is your first time watching the parade. What are you most excited about?
I'm super excited about I can see so many different soldiers and also super amazing jazz. Like, I didn't know we have so many different diverse jazz flights. It was so great.
It was very impressive. And can you tell me, well, this year our guest of honor country is Indonesia. We have 451 troops marching, representing Indonesia, as well as other foreign units. And this does follow Macron's deepening ties in the Indo-Pacific region, and he recently did a tour of Southeast Asia. What image do you think the French army projects of itself abroad, and specifically in the Asia-Pacific region, you being from Taiwan?
Yeah, because right now, usually when we think of army, especially Asia, the first thing comes to our mind is going to be like the US, etc. But I think it's going to be super great if France or other European countries can build a stronger relationship or partnership with Asian countries as the geopolitical uncertainties rising. I think it's going to be super great, super beneficial if we have such a relationship or partnership. Yeah.
And that is definitely one of the themes in this year's parade, and that is strategic solidarity with foreign units. So this is what we're seeing today. And as the parade continues, we'll be checking in on other spectators. We'll be following for the next few hours until the end of the parade, which is due to finish at the Place de la Concorde, just a couple of kilometers away from here.
All right, Liza Kamov, thank you very much for that update. People very enthusiastic watching from the sidelines there. As you mentioned, it is a public holiday here in France, so people have to be particularly motivated to head out there to watch.
I think people coming from all over the country, I mean, not everybody is interested in the military parade, that's for sure. Everybody likes to have a day off work today, which is obviously Bastille Day, that's what it is. But many people would come to Paris and like to take part, watch this from the sidelines, many watching at home on television. There are events taking place in many towns, villages and cities around France to mark Bastille Day as well, with smaller parades, gatherings, barbecue parties. There are lots of different celebrations taking part today. This really is a coming together of the French people, a national day of celebration, if you like, to look at the French military and to say basically thank you to the French military for all they do for protecting us and protecting France. And I think that feeling that France is more and more dependent on the military today than maybe people used to think it was in the old days is becoming more apparent, especially since that speech by Emmanuel Macron last night, where he's announced a ramping up of military spending in the face of what he says is a growing threat, principally from Russia.
Some in France, some other politicians, opposition politicians, said that they were concerned after that speech, saying that he struck a very alarmist tone. Do you think that that's fair?
There are two reactions, basically, to this speech. There are those who say that France can't afford right now to spend more money on the military because the state coffers are empty, and it would be very foolish to increase the national debt by ramping up military spending. There are others who say, well, we should do that. We will have to find the money from somewhere. We may not have to increase the military debt, but we need to increase the number of military personnel and our capacity to retaliate because we don't have a choice. There are others saying that Emmanuel Macron is striking, you're right, a rather alarming note. But I think what the president has been saying is that it's time for us to wake up to the fact that life as we knew it, life as we know it, has changed. The period where our parents lived after the Second World War into the 1950s and 60s, where there was no real threat, is over. And that now has been replaced by a return to much more somber days where no one is really sure how things are going to evolve in the future. As we've been saying earlier on, war is on the doorstep of Europe in Ukraine. There is a war going on in Gaza right now that doesn't seem to be coming to an end anytime soon. There have been bombing raids against Iran. There is also the threat from other countries around the world, notably North Korea. There is a lot to be concerned about. And I think that is the call from Emmanuel Macron. There's no direct threat to France right now, but he's saying if we neglect the fact that we have the armed forces, if we don't make the necessary investment now that we should be making, we should have made already, then we are going to open the door to more problems in the future. For the time being, things are okay, but we shouldn't just sit back and take it for granted. We need to be very careful.
Macron, who has made a point of stressing the need for cooperation, particularly with European allies. As I mentioned, there are members of the UNIFIL peacekeeping force that's active in Lebanon. We've got Belgian and Luxembourgish soldiers parading as well. Claire Pakal, who is at the Champs-Élysées, our reporter there, will be able to tell us a little bit more about that and the kinds of things that's involved. Claire, if you can hear me, go ahead and tell us what exactly we're seeing in this parade today.
Certainly not. I can only just about hear you, Karis, because it's extremely loud where I am standing. I'm standing towards the bottom of the Champs-Élysées Avenue, and as you can see, well, at the moment there are no troops passing, but they will be along very shortly. You should be able to see the crowds behind. These are people who have been waiting since 7 or 8 in the morning, trying to get the best possible view. Many of them will be family members of the troops who are taking part in this parade. As the Marseillaise was played earlier on in the parade, everyone stood up. As the aircraft flew by, everyone looked into the skies, and of course now all eyes are on the troops as they march past. Many young people parading today, of course, youth and the future of the French armed forces is very much one of the focuses of today's parade. Soon we should have the Saint-Cyrien, so these are the officer training school here in France. They should be coming along shortly. What I can say is that the crowd, these are really dedicated, enthusiastic people who have come here, but of course people across France will be watching this on their television sets, on their iPhones, on their computers. This is really a big moment in the French calendar, and certainly, of course, it's a bank holiday, it's a public holiday here, so people have the day off work. Here in the Champs-Élysées, though, serious focus on the troops who are heading now towards Concorde, where Emmanuel Macron is seated. And of course, after them, we'll look back into the skies as the helicopters pass.
And Claire, if you can hear me okay, a little earlier you spoke to some of those troops taking part in the parade. What did they tell you?
Certainly, I spoke to a Finnish border guard, a platoon leader with the Finnish border guard, who's actually been working on the ground, serving with French troops as part of the UN peacekeeping mission in Lebanon. UNIFIL, and he's actually marching. He marched past earlier on. He's marching with French forces. So these are soldiers who've worked together on the ground, helping to maintain the fragile ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel. And now they're here marching together on the Champs-Élysées. And of course, they are very pleased to be doing that. And that Finnish officer who I spoke to said he's actually about to head back to Lebanon. His mission there is not yet finished. I also spoke to a battalion commander in the Indonesian army. And of course, his troops opened the parade, and we heard some of the music earlier on. And of course, he is over the moon to be here today. His troops have been working hard, practicing for this event. And the presence, of course, of Indonesian troops is really a marker of Franco-Indonesian cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. Indonesia is a really important strategic partner for France.
All right, Claire, Pakal, thank you very much for that update from the Champs-Élysées. We'll check in with you again shortly. Majors Julian and Nicolas, could you tell us a little bit about the troops that we've just seen parading on the Champs-Élysées?
We've just seen all the different schools for the non-commissioned officers. Just before this image, we had the French Air and Space non-commissioned officers academy, which is the school where all the technicians of the Air Force are being prepared, but not only obviously to repair the plane and the choppers of the Navy and the Army. They are sending their soldiers and their sailors to the French Air and Space Academy.
And clearly very important job. You being a major in the French Air Force, can you tell us a little bit about your pathway to how you got into this work? I mean, we'll be talking also about the young people who have taken part in schools that kind of place them into these jobs. Did you know that it was something that you always wanted to do?
Well, as far as I remember, I think more than 30 years ago, I might have seen a jet just above my head, and it made me dream. So I had the chance to join the Air Force in 2008 in the French Air and Space Academy, and then I go through all the steps to become a fighter pilot, and I've been a Rafale fighter pilot for 10 years now, and I'm still flying for almost 2 or 3 years, but I'm getting old, and the youth will take my place in the following years.
And what's the difference between the kinds of training that you have to go through to fly the planes that we saw in the air parade a little earlier, and then for the helicopters that we're about to see?
It's really, really different. At the beginning, we are not a fighter pilot, we are just a pilot for planes, either transport or fighter. And the choppers it's a completely different formation since it doesn't have any wing. It has a propeller, which is above and not in front of the engine. So that's completely different.
All right, and I think we're also going to see border control members of the border control also parade in Paris this Monday. Is that usual?
Well, I think it's the first time. Traditionally, at the end of the parade, there's the police and the firefighters are marching as well, and this year the customs also take part to the parade.
A huge point of pride, as you mentioned, Philip, really showing off France's military might, especially in the given
I think actually that the fact that border staff are parading is a message also to other countries in Europe, because as we were just saying earlier on, there have been these discussions last week in London between Britain and France. A lot of those discussions centred on illegal migration into the UK, which is a bone of contention between the French and the British. The British seem to think the French are not doing enough to stop the small boats from crossing the channel with migrants in. The French are saying this is part of a European problem. It's not just a French problem, and it needs to be dealt with on a European level at Europe's borders, part of the Schengen borders. So I think that the fact that we have border control staff who are taking part in this march down the Champs-Élysées today is underlining the fact that they are playing a very important role. This is a challenge that not only France but many European countries are facing, and it's now time for Europe to come together to find some kind of solution to get this problem under control, which is not going to be easy.
Yeah, it's not only the problems between France and the UK, though, is it? I mean, there's also been resumed border checks in Germany, Lithuania, borders with Poland as well. So this is, it seems, a problem that is coming up again in Europe.
And not just, as you said, in France, certainly a problem in Greece, certainly a problem in Italy, where many migrants are coming into the country. There's this new one in, one out system that has been discussed between France and the UK, where a legal migrant will be taken into the UK in exchange for an illegal migrant coming to France and then being sent back to their country of origin, or the country where they first came into the European Union under the Dublin Agreement. Well, that's something those countries don't want, because they don't want these migrants being sent back, for example, to Italy, to Greece or elsewhere, because they don't want to have to deal with that problem. So this is certainly a European issue, a European discussion that's taking place right now. And France is right at the heart of it, because if there's going to be a discussion about migration, it nearly always centres on the migration issue between France and the United Kingdom. But of course, that's not the only one which affects the European Union.
And the other big problem facing the European Union, or Europe as a whole, as a continent, obviously is the war in Ukraine. We heard on Friday that from the General Chief of Staff of France's army that France is the main threat to Russia, or Russia sees France as a threat. You know, do you think that this is very much in the backs of at least Macron's mind when he makes these announcements about the need to really present a force that can be feared?
I think it's in the mind of Emmanuel Macron on a constant basis. I think it's in the minds of other European leaders, certainly Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, certainly Friedrich Merz, the German Chancellor, certainly the leaders of Eastern Europe who are worried about the threat of an eventual Russian attack on a NATO nation, notably Poland or the Czech Republic, or one of those countries that is very close to Ukraine. And the fact that there is worry the United States is not pressing Vladimir Putin hard enough to come to the negotiating table, which means basically that Vladimir Putin in his mind has more to gain on the ground still than coming to negotiate any kind of ceasefire. And that is the whole crux of what Emmanuel Macron has been talking about over the last couple of days, over the idea of boosting the security, the military budget in France, and come out with more ideas about how to arrive at a full capacity military, which he's going to announce within the next few months.
France has also been involved in training Ukrainians as they fight the Russian invasion. What kinds of things do French military personnel have in mind when they train? It could be troops from Ukraine or any other country. Do they seek to replicate the conditions that those troops might face?
As a soldier, we must train to be ready to face any situation. So when we are training people from foreign countries, we try to train them regarding the threat they are facing. So it depends on the countries where they come from, but we try to be ready to face any threats.
And let's just take a closer look at these images now that we're seeing on the screen. Can you tell us a little bit about the people that we've seen parading just now?
We've just seen just before we've seen the Belgian and Luxembourg detachment that are invited today, and now are the army forces from the 7th Armored Brigade, the one we talked about, which is the Good for War Brigade, which means that it's ready to be deployed within 10 days.
What kinds of, what does that mean? If you need to be ready to be deployed in 10 days, what kinds of things do you need to have in place to be able to do that?
Oh, it means that the training is achieved, that the equipment and the supply are ready and ready to be deployed. The difference with a force which is not ready to be deployed is that the other forces may be going through some training, some preparation, or some rest. So it's a turnover between the different forces.
It is difficult from my standpoint to be able to recognize the jobs of each of these troops parading. Do you think that the public is watching this and they can identify and recognize who these people are?
The aim is not to recognize who they are. The armed forces are representing all of our French people. I mean, in the armed forces, we have some people who are making some bread for the aircraft carrier. We have fighter pilots, we have paratroopers, we have mechanicians, we have engineers, we have medics. We have all the jobs that you can find I would say, in the civilian world, and other jobs that are more specific to the armed forces. So they just are facing kind of their brothers that join the armed forces to protect them.
I think one of the questions that I think many people ask is also about the uniform, because everyone has a different uniform, all very spectacular. What is this? Where do these different uniforms come from originally? What is the signification of that, or significance? I don't know if you can answer this question. And what does the uniform show?
The uniforms come from the history of the units.
Yeah.
So they are a display of the traditions of the unit. So you can see, for instance, some regiments with some croissants or scarves, big, large red scarves on the hips. These are traditions coming from the African forces of the French forces in the 19th century, and each of the uniform is a display of traditions. So there are each feature is a symbol for something that comes from history.
And the same, I imagine, for the Air Force, you've got certain badges and things for different reasons.
Yeah, exactly. On the shoulders, we have a bird of prey, which is a symbol of the Air Force, just besides our ranks. And each of the features that we have is a symbol of our training, our achievements, and the insignia of our unit.
And those that we're seeing parading now at the Place de la Concorde, we can also see that they have their dogs with them as well. Who are these people on the screen?
I think that's the usual star of the Bastille. I think it's the firemen from Paris that are parading. They are the ones who are the more, I would say, admired by all the people alongside the Champs-Élysées.
And the dogs too.
And the dogs. I'm talking about man, women, dogs, everyone in the unit.
Of course. Let's take a look at some of those pictures now. Okay. Well, we have like 40 minutes, so we can talk about it again. France 24. We are broadcasting live as France marks its National Day, Bastille Day. With me on set to talk about this is Majors Julian and Nicolas from the French Air Force. We've been seeing rows of troops after troops parade on the Champs-Élysées towards the Place de la Concorde. How does the army decide the order that these troops parade in?
There are some traditions. The Republican Guard opens and closes the parade. It opens it on foot and close it by horse. And just before the horses of the Republican Guard cavalry, there is the Foreign Legion, which is traditionally the last troop before the horses, because they have a slower pace when they walk. Just after the Republican Guard at the beginning, you have the invited nations and then the academies. And then it depends on the troops that the authorities want to put forward.
And shortly we're going to see troops parading in vehicles as well, correct?
That's correct. After the foot parade, there is the vehicle one. So we're going to see a display of all kind of vehicles, especially recent equipment that we want to show to the public.
All right, well, let's check in with our reporter Claire Pakal, who's standing on the sidelines of this parade. Claire, what can you tell us about what's going on around you?
From where I'm standing, I can see the troops heading down to Concorde, which of course is where the French President Emmanuel Macron is. And I can see there aren't that many more troops who are marching who are going to go past here. We are moving on now. Soon we'll be heading to the next stage in this parade. The helicopters will be flying through the skies above our heads. After that, we'll see the vehicles, the armored vehicles, the tanks. And after that, it'll be the mounted troops, the 200 horses, which will make their way down the Champs-Élysées. So it goes by quickly. It's a parade that goes by very, very fast. The crowds are behind me, concentrating. A lot of them will be looking out for family members. Many of them have family members who are marching today, and they will be looking out for them. We saw the firefighters, the pompiers, go past a little earlier on with their silver helmets and their axes, and they always get the biggest applause. The pompiers always get the biggest applause. And later on, we'll see the pompier, the firefighter, the fire engines driving down the Champs-Élysées, and you'll see again, the pompiers get the biggest claps and cheers from the crowd every year.
And Claire, all of this started with Emmanuel Macron at Place Charles de Gaulle, rekindling the flame under the Arc de Triomphe. Tell us about that.
Certainly, the ceremony started with Emmanuel Macron at the eternal flame, which is above the tomb of the unknown soldier. The tomb of the unknown soldier dates back to just after the end of the First World War, when the remains of an unknown soldier were buried under the Arc de Triomphe to remember the so many French lives which were lost during the First World War. And now every day there is a ceremony to rekindle that flame, and that ceremony is held by the Committee of the Flame, and they were honoured today. Emmanuel Macron gave them a ceremonial sword because it's 100 years since that Committee of the Flame was first established. I've been to one of those ceremonies where they rekindle the flame, and it's quite a moving experience. There is also very often school children, young people who are there to watch, because it's not just about looking to the past. Of course, it's also looking to the future and transmitting, passing on down the memory of the First World War, but also the Second World War too now. That's part of the remembrance of the eternal flame. So that was the beginning of the ceremony, very much a focus on remembrance.
All right, Claire, thank you very much for that. Claire Pakal, live for us there on the sidelines of the Champs-Élysées. This Bastille Day is also marking 100 years of the Bleuet Association, and that is perhaps similar or comparable to what we have in the Commonwealth, the poppy, symbol of remembrance, an association that's helping it's helping victims of war, veterans, widows and orphans, and is really, a symbol of solidarity with those people. Majors Julian, Nicolas, can you tell us a little bit about why this Bleuet Association is so important?
Well, it's important because it takes care of the wounded soldiers and the family of the dead soldiers. It helps them, but also the victims of terrorism since a few years. And it has been doing so for a century because it was created after the First World War, when French endured a lot of wounded soldiers and invalids. And it started with the initiative of some nurses of the invalid institutions, which proposed some invalids to craft paper bleuet and sell them in order to get them busy and also make some money to improve their conditions.
And what kinds of roles does it play in the day-to-day for these kinds of people that it helps?
Well, it provides some financial support, especially to families that lost a member dead in service, and it helps the wounded soldiers during their journey through medical care, because besides medical care, there's also a need for psychological support and also support to the families to come and visit their wounded ones.
All right, we're going to take a listen and take a look now at the pictures that we're seeing live from the Champs-Élysées. President Emmanuel Macron standing on the podium there, watching the parade go by alongside his wife Brigitte, but also guest of honor, Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto. Let's take a check of the atmosphere on the Champs-Élysées. Now we're going to cross live to our reporter Liza Kamov, who's standing by. Liza, what are things like where you are?
Hi, Kara. So I can say the crowd is buzzing. We are just slowly discovering a lot of military enthusiasts and fans of very niche artillery and various military vehicles and arms. As I speak behind me, we have the 247 military vehicles parading. They are making their way down the Champs-Élysées to Place de la Concorde. And as we watch this parade, we've been speaking here with Gabriel from Versailles. Hi, Gabriel. So you are not far from Paris, but you traveled for this parade.
Yeah, of course. I was in the train at 8 in the morning just to be here, down this barrier, and try to have a good spot. I would say I'm not displeased with what I've seen so far.
That's fantastic. So tell me, Gabriel, so this year's parade is certainly bigger and bolder. We have 3 times as many French soldiers parading. We have 7,000 participants. Back in 2015, there were 3,500. How does that make you feel?
Personally, as a Frenchman, it makes me feel that something is going on, and the current message that has been broadcasted everywhere by President Macron about the historical context that nowadays war is over and maybe at the door of Europe, the message has been heard and something is going on to ensure our France's safety and security. So far it makes me feel a little bit reassured and more quiet, safer, because I see here right in front of my eyes that we might be ready for something if things going on.
Do you feel proud of the army? Do you feel patriotic? Is this something that you want the world to see?
I personally speaking, I feel kind of proud of the historical context of my country. I mean, we've been like a nation that has been okay with doing war and kind of not to say good aid because that would not be politically correct, but I feel like we are one of the countries that can surely defend itself. And it makes me feel proud that we're showing to the world that we can still do it. Yes, of course, I feel a little bit patriotic, but that's up to debate. First and foremost, I gotta see that we're ready if something going on.
I see. And so this year, it's the first time that we have members of the voluntary military service marching in the parade alongside the troops. For those who don't know, this is a program for youth aged 18 to 25 who can get military and vocational training. Now, what is the message? You are quite young, you're 23 years old. What message do you think this is sending to the French youth? And does this inspire young people like you to perhaps get involved?
I gotta say that this is an interesting question because the question is not actually in the French debate whether or not the youth should be involved in the French defense. It's how it should be involved. And to see that those people are allowed to parade today, it means that the public opinion allowed to make a space for young people to get involved. And for me, that's the most important part. If you want to ensure the future of France, you need to involve the youth. And personally, I would say that it has a great impact on the youth. If you look at the number, the willingness to enroll, enlist, or at least get involved is skyrocketing. So it shows a strong message that, okay, we are ready for you to get involved and we have space for you. So for me, it's an amazing improvement on this.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. And as we continue to follow the parade, once these military vehicles have reached Place de la Concorde, we will be watching a helicopter parade, which will also be followed by Republican guards on horses, some 200 of them. So a lot of exciting things ahead. The program, a packed program, which is very, very grandiose and very exciting so far.
Liza, those military vehicles that you were talking about, you actually got up close and personal with them a little earlier. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So a couple of hours ago, I was at the foot of the Arc de Triomphe, and there was a stunning display of these military vehicles. I took some time to study some of them. They have these vehicles called Jaguars. These belong to the land army. Today, there are 11 of them in the parade out of a total of 247 military vehicles, and they are used by the land army for combat. Now, they are rather complicated to use, but I managed to have a look inside. What I can tell you is that the driver inside remains covered at all times, protected. They are made of very strong stuff, and they are very big when you stand next to them. So me personally, I really enjoyed watching the military vehicles parading down the Champs-Élysées, especially after having taken the time to understand them better.
Yes, Liza, indeed, we can see those vehicles arriving slowly towards the Place de la Concorde in Paris. Thank you very much for that update from you. We heard then with Liza some of those members of the public that have stood there for hours, that waited for this moment. For you, members of the French Air Force, of the other members of the military, I imagine this is something important that you seek public support in these times?
Well, I had the chance to parade in 2009 on the ground, and in 2022 flying over the Champs-Élysées, and we are really proud to represent the French, and we are really proud to meet them just after the parade. Actually, the troops are parading on the Champs-Élysées, and just after the president position, we are meeting with the French on the streets of Paris.
It was the Foreign Legion, I think.
Yeah, they are parading alone because they are their own tempo, their own music, and they have a specific white hat that you don't see.
What's the significance of the aprons they're wearing?
I'm sorry?
The aprons.
These are the pioneers of the Legion.
Yeah.
So traditionally they open the Legion parade, and they are the soldiers that open the way for the forces. So they have axes and apron to be able to cut trees and break rocks in order to open the way to the troops.
And how does one become a member of the Foreign Legion?
Oh, you just have to you have to be a man, because the Foreign Legion is the only service that doesn't recruit women, and then you have to candidate, but you don't need to be French to enter the Foreign Legion.
You can also be. You don't have to be French to join.
Oh, if you are French, you can join the Foreign Legion, but then you will have a false nationality that will be attributed to you when you enter the Foreign Legion.
There's a lot of unanswered questions about the Foreign Legion. They always create a lot of debate in France when you see them about them. People don't really know where they're based and who they are and what they do. So it's always quite interesting when this parade takes place on the 14th of July to ask those questions, because a lot of mystery concern about where the Foreign Legion is actually based and whether they're in France or whether they actually are overseas.
Yes, they're in France, and they're actually like any other army troops. The difference is that they're recruited among foreigners, but otherwise they have infantry, cavalry, engineers, just like other parts of other regiments of the army.
And the music is notably different to what we've been hearing throughout the parade, isn't it?
They have a slower pace when they march, so that's, as I said, that's what they are at the end of the foot parade.
And you see that the Foreign Legion doesn't separate itself in front of the president. They are keeping the same block in order to walk together to the left side.
Why is that?
Because they will never divide themselves.
I see, so symbolic.
Yeah.
And earlier when you were talking about meeting the French public after the parade, we talked a little bit about this earlier. There's very strict security protocols in place. During the parade, what does that involve, and how long do the members who are ensuring the security, they have to be there for hours before the parade starts?
Yeah, exactly. And the parade will not last will not end at noon. It will last until the end of the day. You can meet all the armed forces until I think 7 p.m. This afternoon. So the security forces, they will work all day long until late in the evening.
And I imagine when you meet some of those members of the public, they have questions about the kinds of things that's involved in your job. What kinds of questions do you get asked the most?
Well, as a fighter pilot, lots of people ask me how to become a fighter pilot, and I tell them it doesn't matter what is the job that is that you want to do. Just do it with your heart, work hard, and you might achieve your dream.
With passion and conviction.
Yeah.
We're seeing now the helicopters then starting to parade. Can you tell us a little bit about the kinds of helicopters that we're seeing?
Yes, you will see helicopter from the three services, mostly from the army, because most of the helicopters are actually part of the army, but there are also some in the Air Force and in the Navy. Especially on board on the ships. So I currently don't see any helicopter, but you have a display of different capacities like troop transport, attack, recce, but also search and rescue. And here we see some maneuver helicopters. So they are these are the helicopters that are used to transport the ground forces, like the commando especially, and also some recce and fire support helicopters.
Are they French-built?
Yes, all of them are French-built. We have Airbus helicopters, which is a French helicopter manufacturers that builds most of them.
And how many people are needed to fly and operate the helicopters?
Well, it depends on the helicopter, but it's between 2 to 5 people, depending on the model.
All right, well, meanwhile, on the ground, on the Champs-Élysées, we've got those military vehicles parading. We can go to Claire Pakal, who's right in the heart of the action there. Claire, tell us about what you're seeing.
So behind me, the tanks and the armored vehicles are parading. You should be able to see the tanks just coming into view on my right. This is, of course, an opportunity for France to show off its military hardware, as well as, of course, the French defense industry. France has a significant defense industry. These are French designed, these are French made, and France, which was different from many of its neighbors after the end of the Cold War, kept up its defense industry and is continuing to design and build much of its own military hardware. While some of its neighbors in the 1990s, some of the defense industry fell and began to crumble. Here in France, it was very much kept up. Looking to my right, yep, a whole stream of vehicles will be coming your way on your screens very, very shortly. I can say the noise is almost deafening, but the crowd watching really up close to get an idea of how large these vehicles are. And of course, the troops inside in combat gear, helmets, bulletproof vests, really keen to show, and that's part of the focus of this year's parade, keen to show that France and the French armed forces are ready if need be.
And another theme, Claire, is cooperation with other partners, notably in Europe. Tell us a little bit about that.
Certainly, this is a day for France, but it's also a day for France to show that it has allies. In the skies, we saw the Typhoon, the Eurofighter aircraft going through the skies. There was a British one, a Spanish one, a Belgian one. There were Swiss aircraft in the skies as well. And you will also be seeing shortly another theme, which is a big theme at the moment here in France. The firefighters. We've seen forest fires near Marseille and in Marseille in recent weeks. And soon we should be seeing fire engines coming down the Champs-Élysées as well. Here in France, in Paris, firefighters actually have military status, so they are part of this parade. Again, this is all. You can see this military hardware. Much of France's military hardware, its tanks, its armored vehicles, have been updated recently as part of the Scorpion program. So we have vehicles, the Serval, the Jaguar, the Griffon, the newly modernized Leclerc tank as well. So this is all on show here on the Champs-Élysées. You can see going past me now, huge modernized vehicles, part of the French armed forces, and on show here at the Champs-Élysées in Paris today.
All right, Claire, thank you very much. The images certainly are impressive. The sound as well. Hope your ears are okay after that. Claire Pakal there, reporting live from the Champs-Élysées. Majors Julian, Nicolas, can you tell us a little bit more about the kinds of things that we're seeing?
Yeah, we are currently seeing the Leclerc main battle tank, which is the heaviest combat vehicle in the French army. And just before, we've seen some armored VBC, which is armored infantry combat vehicles. And the purpose of this vehicle is to drop the infantry as close as possible to the firing positions they want to reach, or the enemy foxholes, and also to provide fire support with the gun which is on top of the vehicle. And we've also seen some Griffin, which is a new armored infantry carrier. So it's same as the previous one, the VBCI. It's to transport the infantry, but it's less armored and has less firepower than the other one. So it depends on the infantry regiments. They have different vehicles depending of the regiment, if it's an armored infantry or light infantry. Exactly. These are the vehicles we are currently seeing. These are vehicles of the 7th Armored Brigade.
Philip, do you agree with something that Claire, we heard from Claire earlier, France is wanting to show all of this. Do you think that any of its adversaries will be watching?
I was standing in the same place as Claire Pakal a year or so ago, covering the same 14th of July Bastille Day celebrations and looking at all the military vehicles that parade down the Champs-Élysées, plus the air display as well, thinking you don't really need to have a special salon to show this off. You need to say to people that if you want to sell your military hardware, tune in on 14th of July or send them a copy of this parade to show them what France can do and what France can produce. Certainly this is a way of showing the world that France is able to produce all sorts of different military vehicles, military hardware, and has all the different brigades necessary to be at the forefront of any military conflict. But not only overseas, France is also ready to protect itself. And many of the people here, if you're talking about the fire brigade, for example, the gendarmerie, the police force, they're all working in France to protect everyday French in their daily lives. They're not part of the international forces that will take on a rival outside of France. So it's not just international, it's national as well, which is where all of the different forces come together to show what they're made of and what they can do on the Champs-Élysées. You can see the motorbikes at the back of the parade there with their lights flashing, which is part of the gendarmerie coming down the Champs-Élysées, followed by their heavy-duty vehicles. They're just working within France itself to make sure that all French people are able to lead normal lives in the best possible secure way.
Well, one region in particular where France is focusing on in terms of selling its military equipment is the Asia Pacific, of course. Another reason why we're seeing the Indonesian president as the guest of honor this Monday at the parade, notably France having already sold Rafale jets, other Scorpion submarines, and a new order of the Caesar self-propelled howitzers as well. Philip, Indonesia then looking to deepen its cooperation with Paris.
Well, 75 years of diplomatic relations, which is why the Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto is invited today. This is a tribute to the longevity of that relationship. 75 years, that's a long time since the end of the Second World War, and that is why France wants to show that it is still an ally and a friend to that nation. And we've seen right at the very start of this display today, the Indonesian armed forces given pride of place, being the first ones to go down the Champs-Élysées. That is also something that is quite usual when a foreign country is invited to take part in the Bastille Day celebrations. So you can be quite certain that this is going to be on the top of the news bulletin in Indonesia today. The fact that the president is here in Paris to take part in the parade on the Champs-Élysées with the Patriot 2 task force of Indonesia, showing not only the French but also the rest of the world what they can do, and a very pretty dance routine which is put forward, which is quite modern in a way compared to the very traditional way that the parade takes place here in France, an added element to make it a little bit more light-hearted.
And Majors Julian, Nicolas, the types of vehicles that we're seeing now, several members inside those. And can you also tell us a bit about the flags that we've seen on some of those vehicles?
Traditionally, we see the flags of the units, and all the units are lowering the flag just in front of the president, because the president is the commander-in-chief of all the armed forces. So that's a sign of respect from the armed forces to the president.
And these units as well must go through very substantial training, like the other troops that we've seen parade.
Yeah, exactly. Even though they are in an armored vehicle, they do I would say, top-rated training to be prepared to the most dangerous conflict.
So these are troops who come from all over France as well. Centres across France where training is held.
Yes, there are bases and regiments all over France. So on the Bastille Day, units are coming from all over the country to take part to the parade, of course.
In a little while, we're going to see the mounted troops, so the troops on horseback. What kinds of activities are these involved in?
Oh, you're talking about the Republican Guard?
Exactly.
Yeah, there's still that's the last cavalry on horses regiment in France. First they maintain the tradition and the know-how of such troops, but also some craft, which is surrounding the service of horses. They also take part to competitions, so they have an ambassador role for the French forces and the gendarmerie, and they also take part to the missions of the gendarmerie. They reinforce some gendarmerie units in France, especially on holidays for horse patrols.
And what kinds of competitions are you talking about? They're not in public, are they?
Oh, I'm not a specialist, but I know there are some very skilled horsemen in the Republican Guard, and so I guess these are some horse contests.
We have one Olympic champion who was part of the French horse team in the previous Olympics.
Great, and the Olympics, obviously last year that they were going on while France held its parade. It was moved slightly to another street instead of the Champs-Élysées, but it is nice and a return to tradition to have it back on this avenue. It didn't change much though in terms of the programming, did it? If it's moved from one street to another?
Well, it was a completely different mission.
Okay.
Yeah, to be, as we say, on time, on target with 5,000 people and around 100 jets and helicopters. If you move the axis or you change from the Champs-Élysées to another avenue, it's a new job, a new training to move. We used a 180 degrees move last year to fly not from west to east, but from east to west, and it was a hard training.
Fascinating. So you train not in Paris, but somewhere else, and aim to replicate the conditions as best as possible?
Exactly. For the aircraft, we are training in Orléans Air Base in order not to disturb all the liners, the civilian liners that are landing in Charles de Gaulle and Orly.
Indeed. Well, we're going to just take a look at these pictures now as we get them live from the Champs-Élysées. France holds its annual Bastille Day parade. We see there police on motorbikes. Is that correct, Major Julian?
Exactly. During the Bastille Day, you not only have the armed forces, but you have all the security forces, such as the firemen, the customs, and you see on the screen the police riding motorbikes and armored vehicles.
All right, and behind them, more armored vehicles. Do we know what these types of vehicles are?
These are the armored vehicles of the gendarmerie, which is there is actually one unit of the gendarmerie with armored vehicle that is in charge of reinforcing all of gendarmerie units when necessary.
All right, well, we can cross live now to our reporter on the ground, Claire Pakal. She's going to tell us a little bit more about what we're seeing, those particular gendarmes and also firefighters, Claire.
Swept past me. They were after the police motorcyclists. They are all heading down, of course, to Concorde, where the French President Emmanuel Macron is seated. And soon, get ready for the cheers, because we will see the fire engines coming down. Now, French firefighters, the pompiers, are very much held in a special place in the hearts of many French people, not least because they are there to put out fires, but they're also there in emergency situations. If there's a car crash, if there's something that's happened, very often it's a pompier, it's a firefighter, who will come and bring first aid. And of course, so recent here we go. Here they are, and the crowd, as I thought would happen, is cheering as the firefighters come past. The Sapeurs-Pompiers de Paris, who have military status here in Paris. They provide first aid. They are there when French people need first aid, when there's an accident in the road, of course, when there's a fire as well. And we've seen in recent weeks forest fires. This is the time of year in France, the hot, dry months of the summer, when forest fires break out. And of course, it's to the firefighters that we turn to here in France for help. So that now is the end of the parade of the vehicles. The firefighters end it, and the crowd now, of course, looking to see what's next.
All right, Claire. Yes, that indeed a French firefighter is involved in a great many tasks here in France, notably handing out vaccines during the COVID-19 pandemic, as I recall. Major Julian, the firefighters that we saw, Claire mentioned that they were battling wildfires in the south of France. In terms of aircraft, is it aircraft from the French army that's involved in fighting fires, or other aircraft?
For the aircraft, they are part of the civilian security forces, and they are flying what we know the Canadair, which is one of the most famous aircraft fighting fires on the forest. But they are also flying the Dash 8 and some choppers to take water in the swimming pool and drop it over the trees during the summer to stop the fires.
Is it common for France to lend these aircraft to European neighbours when there are wildfires threatening other countries?
Yes. As the armed forces were working all together, so during the previous years, we've sent our Canadiers to Greece, to Spain, to Portugal, for example. We are working all together to stop the fires as soon as possible.
All right, well, I can see the mounted troops there. Let's check in with Claire on the ground again. Claire, we've got the Garde Républicaine on horseback.
Certainly, the Garde Républicaine, the Republican Guard on horseback. They are ending this military parade, and you can see a horse has lost its rider. I've seen a horse has lost his rider. I can't see where his rider is now. We'll be following that, but it's okay. The horse now seems to be calming down, is okay. Hopefully that the rider is okay as well. The Republican Guard then making their way down to Concorde, which is where the end of this ceremony will take place, with the Bleuet de France, the blue cornflower, symbolic of remembrance of the soldiers fallen in past wars, similar to the poppy symbol that we have in other countries. The Bleuet de France will be honoured at the end of this military parade. The Bleuet de France continues today to give help, psychological help, material help to war veterans here in France. And there you have it, the very last of the mounted troops, the Republican Guard, as they sweep by on their way to Concorde.
All right, Claire, Pakal, thank you very much for following along every move of that parade down the Champs-Élysées. Philip Turle, our international affairs editor, is with me. Philip, just reminding us for viewers who might have just joined us, this Bastille Day comes in a quite particular context, doesn't it? Especially after an announcement that Macron made last night, Sunday night.
Well, first of all, Bastille Day is held to commemorate the French Revolution and the events of the storming of the Bastille on the 14th of July, 1789. It's been a regular event since 1880. It was only during the Second World War from 1940 to 1945 that the Bastille Parade didn't exist because France was under the control of Nazi Germany. But it was reinstated after the Second World War and is a regular military parade. Has been every year since then. Not always on the Champs-Élysées, but usually on the Champs-Élysées, especially since François Mitterrand became president back in 1981. And this year is a little bit more special maybe than previous years, as we've been saying throughout the programme, due to Emmanuel Macron's call yesterday for increased military spending, up to 64 billion euros annually on military spending in France for the year 2027. That is 3 years ahead of that deadline for that figure to be reached, because he says of the international geopolitical situation, which is put France in a much more precarious position about defending its democracy, defending freedom, and defending everything that France stands for. And that's why the French president has used this as a sort of wake-up call to generate support from the French population, saying, we're not under threat, but we could be. We need to boost our military capacity. We need to increase military spending. If we do it right and we get it right, then we will stave off any threat to France in the future. And that has been the underlying message, I think, right the way through the day and during this military parade, trying to wake the French people up, saying we're now moving into a different period, a much more anxious period. France will win. That's what Emmanuel Macron said several times during his address last night. If we get everything right, then we have nothing to worry about. But this is the time for us to start moving forward in the right way so that we have nothing to worry about in the future.
All right, well, as the parade slowly reaches an end, as the troops make their way to Place de la Concorde, where President Emmanuel Macron is watching on, we can get a sense of the atmosphere, what it's like there on the Champs-Élysées. We're going to cross live to Liza Kamov, our journalist on the ground. Liza, what have some spectators been telling you there?
Well, we just saw the last of the firefighters drive past us, and I must say they were among the most applauded units. The spectators were very excited to see them, giving them nods of recognition and, of course, a big round of applause. And they were among the last of the 247 vehicles which paraded down the Champs-Élysées. And now I'm speaking to Nzidu. She is a student in Paris, among the keen spectators who's still here as everyone's leaving. Tell me, Nzidu, this is your first time seeing the French military parade. How did you find it?
Well, I am in absolute awe, apart from the show of the power and exuberance of the French military. What shocked me was the unity amongst the spectators. There was no discrimination in that, because both the French and non-French felt this admiration and togetherness.
That's great. And can you tell me, this is one of the first times that in the parade we have units walking in their combat gear rather than their official ceremonial wear. How do you think that reflects, how does that make you feel, let's say, about their role in making France secure?
It has consolidated my faith in the security and the defense system of France. I believe there are some countries that you go to study, and there are certain areas you cannot access at certain times. But this is not the case here, because since I have been living in France, I can go anywhere. And this parade has just shown me the power in the security of France.
Thank Thank you very much indeed. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And even though the parade is over, there are many festivities happening across the capital and, of course, across the country. And we'll be following those events closely throughout the day for you.
Thank you very much. Liza Kamov reporting live there from the Champs-Élysées. Let's take a look now at what we can see on the screen. Majors Julian, Nicolas with me on set from the French Air Force. We can see a military band here playing. What is this final show of the parade?
This is for the 100th year of the Bleuet de France. There is a special choreography that will take place with young people, young cadets, and the band of the Marine troops is playing the music. And I think there will be a song as well, which has been specifically composed for the occasion.
The blue flower, the bleuet, is sold as a reminder to raise funds for this association celebrating its 100th year. Let's take a listen now. Well, if you're just joining us, we're taking those live images from the Bastille Day parade on the Champs-Élysées as French President Macron watches on with his Indonesian counterpart. There we saw that final show from the Bleuets de France, which is an association that stands in solidarity with victims of war, with veterans, with widows and orphans, celebrating 100 years of that association this year. Let's talk a little bit more about this on set with Majors Julian and Nicolas. We've just seen the finale there of this Bastille Day parade. Was it okay to watch it from the sidelines this time instead of being a part of it?
Oh, it's a new experience for us. I first did it on the ground in 2008, then of flying a Rafale in 2022, and now on TV in 2025. So that's a new experience, and we are proud to represent and to explain to all of the world what our brothers in arms are doing on Bastille Day.
Same for you, Major Nicolas.
Oh, I've only taken part once to the parade, marching along the Champs-Élysées. So I'm quite used to watching it instead of taking part. But most of the times I've been abroad on duty.
Well, we thank you very much for coming in to France 24 to talk about this with us. That's Major Nicolas, who's a major in the French Air Force, Major Julian, also a major in the French Air Force and the head of the 30th Fighter Wing at Mont-de-Marsan Air Base. Philip Tull, our International Affairs Editor, has also been with us. Thank you very much, Philip. Thanks to you, our viewers, for watching. We'll leave you with these pictures of the parade at Place de la Concorde.